to stop him, don't you? I can't stop him.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of the Horror Syndicate Live. I'm Brian Enright. You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Brian Enright or Twitter at the Horror Jew. And next we have Baron Craze.
Hey, greetings, everyone. You can find me on Twitter under the Baron_Craze. Also find me on Facebook under Baron Craze or the Baron's Crypt. And hey, I'm the horror historian, so I know all the nasty details of horror.
Jared here. Hey there, boils and ghouls. You guys can follow me on Twitter also at zombie_survivor.
And I'm Morgan. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't usually use this, but anyway. My Twitter is at Morgan_Jewel_.
The underscores again.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't it like underscores? Anyway, let's try this again. My Twitter is at Morgan_Jewel_S, or you should be able to see it.
That was much better.
Way better. I got to get that emblem thing at the bottom of my screen. You guys got to teach me how to do that later.
I could teach you right now. It's really easy.
Okay.
Just roll over on the left-hand side of the screen where it says Google or Hangout Toolbox. Accept it. Go and then.
Okay.
And next is Rayzilla. Go, Rayzilla.
Hey there, horror fans. It's your old Uncle Rayzilla here, coming to you semi-conscious and heavily medicated here in my lair, located somewhere off of exit 18E of the New Jersey Turnpike. A belated happy Halloween to everybody. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves, and good evening to all of my fellow members of the Syndicate. Nice to see everybody.
Does that mean it's my turn now?
Our fearless leader.
I broke my...
We are live. Look at that. You see that?
Yeah.
We are live. Go ahead, Ray.
I'm not even going to bother introducing myself. I'm so mad. Which is why my personal website is Rage of Razor, because I'm always mad. But that's where you can find me, at Razor_33, and Rage of Razor on Facebook, because I'm very private otherwise.
All right, well, welcome to another fun-filled episode. I know previously we covered Halloween 3. Before that, we had the show covering ourselves and our interests. I know we had a little bit about the Sci-Fi Channel with Rayzilla. And last week we hit up the Halloween 3 and scary stories. I know Baron was the MVP with his scary stories. Scared me. But this week we got something very interesting. We'll get to that later on. First segment of tonight is Halloween. So basically we're all just going to talk to each other about our Halloweens, the common thing that happens on Halloweens, and how well our Halloweens went for us this year compared to the years before. I'll start with me. Halloween this year was awesome. I got to spend it with my child and my wife, and my child got very angry the second time we took her outside, and then she, was very upset with us, but we used her as a bait to get lots of candy. And people were very generous because we had a baby with us dressed as a unicorn, and they gave us lots of candy. I think I've got the most candy than I've ever gotten by myself when I was Gene Simmons from Kiss. So that was a lot of fun. So any young parents out there, take your children with you, especially newborns, for the first Halloween. Dress them up nice and bundly and take them out, and you will get a lot of candy. Baron, how was your Halloween?
Let's say I started Halloween at about 12:30 a.m. with the special Halloween broadcast of Shredded Metal Beast, which the second portion of the show was to honor for a Black Mass, which I did attend later that night. I was giving an exclusive event to go to. No cell phones were permitted since there was no tracking allowed or video. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. Great food, great everything. A little bit of like Santeria was done, the sacrifice of an animal, and then it was cooked. And it was delicious, and the food was great. It was an interesting experience. So maybe next time I'll have one nearby, a little bit closer to honor thy father.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jared, how was your Halloween?
It was pretty eventful. I just moved into a new house with my wife not so long ago, and apparently we moved into a neighborhood where lots of trick-or-treaters like to go. My wife guesstimated that we gave away about 15 pounds of candy. No joke.
Did either of you dress up?
I had my Jason mask. I scared a couple of younger kids, but that's about it.
All right. Cool. Congratulations on the house.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Now we're going to Morgan. Morgan, how was your Halloween, Scream Queen?
It could have been better. It was the first year out of all my 20 years of life that I've never gone trick-or-treating. It was very sad. Me and my brother just sat on our porch handing out, and not that many kids weird.
Morgan, it's cutting.
Did y'all hear any of
Yeah, you're
that?
cutting out a little bit.
Why?
I don't even know if anybody can hear me at this point.
No, you sound good, Ray.
You sound wonderful. You sound better than me.
Hello?
So, hi.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Was that it?
Okay. So
Yeah, you sound
should I
so
just like
convinced.
restart what I was saying?
What I heard was you and your brother sat on the porch
Oh my
waiting for
God.
trick-or-treaters, right?
Yes.
Having
And you were very sad.
in your life.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Okay. Yep. I was dressed up as 11 from Stranger Things, and my brother wore this lovely mask from the Scream.
Oh, there was
You
a
need a new
person.
microphone.
Yep.
Chevy,
That's all that happened.
so there was a person in the Scream mask. I saw the pictures on Facebook. So anyway,
Yep.
how about you, Rayzilla? How's your?
Well, you know, Halloween isn't what it used to be here at Casa Rayzilla. The kids are grown. They really don't go trick-or-treating anymore. And I don't have any children on the block here. So we did buy candy, but not a single child rang my doorbell on Halloween. That was a first, I think. We usually get people every year. But for some reason this year, not a single person showed up at my door. So I spent Halloween basically, drinking NyQuil and watching bull riding on cable. And I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it can get a little monotonous after a while.
So this Facebook Live thing was a bad idea. They're not getting any sound.
And I believe it was your idea, wasn't it, Brian?
It was. It was, but we look pretty.
Just here to point that out. That's all.
Very good
We
job,
look-
Rizzo.
So they're not hearing any of us?
No, they're not hearing any of us. And if the thing is, if I put my my computer volume on instead of my headphones, we're gonna get that echo.
Mm-hmm.
So
What a drag! I'm not hearing the wisdom that is being expelled at this moment.
no, not at all. Let's wait a minute. I think I may have fixed the problem.
Well, if all of our friends on Facebook could let us know if they can hear us, keep the feedback coming. because it helps us to bring you a better show.
That's right. Let's see if we can hear us now.
Can you hear us now?
Because what happened was I had some issues.
Really? You?
Yeah, we know that shit about you, dude. So no surprise here.
All right, so actually I'm gonna turn my volume up, see if we can hear us.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
And now, is there any sound? Hello out there,
No.
Mr. Mrs. America.
There's no sound.
There is no sound on Facebook.
I'm an asshole. Come on.
Please send
All
your
right.
cards and letters to Ryan and Ryan.
Known as asshole.
1649 Murray Hill Station, New York, New York. 10025.
You guys enjoy the show because my mic's not working again.
Are you out?
Oh no.
Oh no. Mhm. Well,
Look, before we get
That's-
started, Brian, just want to make a really little announcement here for everybody.
I'm gonna take us off live. Hold on.
All right.
All right.
Next week we go professional, people.
Yes, we do.
This one's on the house. All right?
The first time for everything. I really
This one's on
can't.
the house, and
I can't really
drinks
do
for
any.
it.
I can't really do any
Four
tests.
times the charm.
I can't really do any testing with the audio because this is the first time we're actually testing with it with a live show, and the website I have is going to be the website that I'm going to be using, or not the website, the application I'm going to be using for the VHS Live on every Friday night. It's going to be at midnight. I'm going to pick a random VHS movie, and I'm going to advertise it on the Horror Syndicate Facebook page. And it will be live, and people can join and talk and watch the movie, and we can all sit together and have fun. And no, I'm not giving you the title of the first movie that I'm playing.
Humbug.
VHS. My
VHS.
goodness, a dead technology.
I'm uploading. I have over 100 out of print VHS horror movies. Not just horror, but like cult or like movies that like you never hear anymore. Like Anchor Bay didn't get their hands on it or anything like that. Especially Scream Factory, they may be just getting their hands on it. But I have a whole bunch of movies, like even like sequels to like horror movies that were never seen the light of DVD. So that's exciting. Yeah. So, but our leader isn't here. So, but we're going to continue with this show. Our next big topic that we have going on is the Dead series. Now, before we get into what happened with George Romero earlier this week, I'm sure that you've all heard about it. With the George Romero attacking The Walking Dead and for some reason World War Z. But we're gonna go into the movies themselves, the classic trilogy: Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. Hey, so with Night of the Living Dead, I believe came out in 1969. Was that 8? Okay, so 1968. And it was originally called Night of the Flesh Eaters, if I'm not mistaken. And then that caused a huge controversy with copyright laws. And pretty much George Romero and John A. Russo never, they were the creators of Night of the Living Dead, never got the residuals that they deserved for bringing the modern zombie. So it's pretty upsetting, but hey, that's life. So let's go into Night of the Living Dead. Anyone have any thoughts about the movie, about any trivia? We'll go on and on for hours about Night of the Living Dead, especially when we get to Dawn. So who would like to take it from here? Baron, what do you have to say?
Night of the Living Dead is a real interesting movie. It's maybe one or maybe the second or third film where one of the lead actors is an African American. You have to understand, it's 1968. This is a rarity in cinema to begin with, and his role is calm, but he's also forceful at times when he has to be, and it's just something that's different at that moment. So I think that's one of the things that stands out about that movie the most.
I agree.
Apparently, the original dialogue that was written for Dwayne Jones, who plays Ben in the movie, the dialogue was actually written for a character that was less educated, and Dwayne was, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think he was a professor at a university, and he was a well-educated man, and he really rewrote a lot of the dialogue right there on the set, along with I believe it's Carl Hartman. He also kind of did some improvisation and did some rewriting on the set. The movie comes together. It's funny because it's kind of haphazard. The casting of an African American in the lead wasn't intentional. According to George Romero, he simply gave the best screen test. He gave the best audition. He was right for the part. No other intention beyond that. I think Romero's intention was to create a version of I Am Legend, and I believe he admits to that. That Night of the Living Dead is very much his take on I Am Legend, by Richard Matheson.
Yeah.
Correct. But still, it's a fantastic movie. It's an incredible movie. I remember being a very young kid watching it on WPIX here in New Jersey. And whenever those moments in the film where we're looking at the newscast, where the news reporter is conveying to us the phenomenon and what's going on, the burning of the bodies and such, WPIX used to run a crawl at the bottom of the screen while the film was airing on television. And the crawl would say, "You are watching the film Night of the Living Dead. Please do not call the station." So apparently people were, this was predominantly black and white TVs. Black and white television wasn't all that unusual in the early 70s. They used to make a big stink about things being in color. And I know I had a black and white TV when I was a kid. So the newscast looked rather real, almost a Orson Welles kind of War of the Worlds type of phenomenon, where people would actually call the station and say, is this for real? What the hell's going on? So that's a memory that I have from my childhood of watching Night of the Living Dead. But I think what marks the film most is the fact that the lead dies at the end.
Yeah.
That Ben is shot and killed, and there's an indifference to it. He fought so hard, he saved so many lives, and he's killed at the end. And so the film broke several cinematic taboos in the process, and I think that those cinematic taboos are what makes it stand out.
I agree.
Yeah.
Did the guys at the end shoot him because he was black?
No, they mistake him for a zombie.
Do you think that's what it is? Because every time I watch the movie, I look at their faces, and I don't know that they are actually, I just kind of get the impression that they don't care. They just shoot him anyway.
That's an interesting point, and that has been brought up before, especially since where it was set, kind of rural area, where.
And plus the 60s.
Yeah, and the 60s. And it's just one of those things where, okay, we got zombies, so we have the carte blanche rule of, hey, kill anything that isn't us.
Free reign.
It's always been one of those dualities in the horror industry where it goes on both sides. Some say they just did it because he was just somebody out there, and you have the right now to kill anything that you believe is a threat to you. So, it could have been Romero's social injustice that he was trying to portray there in the most subtle point that he can make it.
And I was going to say, I wonder if in the remake, Savini went ahead and they killed Ben or they made him a zombie. I wonder if they did that just because of that.
Perhaps.
Just to kind of sway away from that. Are they doing it because they're racist? Well, I don't know. I've always wondered that myself in watching the end of the movie.
Just FYI, guys, didn't mean to cut you off. We have sound, and we're back on Facebook Live again.
Okay.
Hooray!
So, yeah, we are back. We are up and rolling. So,
And my mic is working for the moment.
Yay! L'chaim.
I just have to back out and go back in if it happens again.
That's okay. I'm glad that we finally fixed all the nooks.
It's not okay. I'm so mad. I can't tell you how mad I am.
We'll edit all the angry parts out of the actual
keep it in.
YouTube
That's
show.
part of my personality.
Rage.
So, but go ahead, Ray. As you were saying about Night of the Living Dead. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, I just that was the only thing I really had to comment on was the possibility of the. I don't know. Were they police, or they were just?
No, it was like a lynch mob, basically.
Yeah.
Not use that term. Sorry.
Well, Ben is the only black guy in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
none of the lynch mob were black, and that's why I always like, well, they just shot him because they were racist.
I kind of got the idea. I watched it at a very young age too. I was under the impression they couldn't really tell what was going on inside the house. They just saw something moving and then just shot it. Not really.
Wasn't Ben shot out in the field?
No, he was
No,
still
he was
inside
in
the
the
house.
It was in the house.
He comes out of the basement, doesn't he?
Yeah, he came out of the basement, was walking around the living room, and gets shot.
Yeah, I've
That's
always
like right between the eyes.
felt
Wow.
that it was a mistaken identity. I think that the deputy or the sheriff who's in charge of the militia that's out there says, "There's one right there. Get him."
Yeah.
He delivers that line just before they shoot the character, before they shoot Ben. So I've always sort of read it that he's being mistaken for a zombie.
I don't
But
know.
nonetheless, the
Yeah.
footage, you got to put it within context of the time. In 1968, we were looking at riots in California. We were looking at riots in New Jersey. We were looking at civil unrest and people being beaten in the streets. So to Razor's point, it very much held a mirror to society. Within the context of 1968.
Yeah, and that's
could be read that way, absolutely.
That's part of the reason I'm kind of a history buff, an American history buff, and knowing everything that happened in the 60s, the civil rights movements and everything like that, and racism was alive and well then just as much as it probably is now, and that's why I was thinking there's something about the guy who like orders the shot, that the look on his face that kind of makes me wonder, is he doing that because he's a dick? I gotta watch it again. I'm gonna do it right now.
I think that going to what you were saying is I don't think that he was necessarily being a dick, the sheriff in Night of the Living Dead when they kill the protagonist at the end. I think it was a time of confusion because not everyone knew what was going on, and they just got
Land of Confusion too.
Was that?
Is it a Land of Confusion too?
Yeah, Phil Collins was there.
Genesis.
And I think that, because it was so new to everybody, they didn't know who was what. All they knew was that people were rising from the grave. People were rising, dead bodies were reanimating, and they were eating people. And the people that they ate got back up, and they were eating. And it isn't until Dawn of the Dead where they say the people they kill get up and kill. And they elaborate more on that. But in Night of the Living Dead, we don't know what the hell is going on. But definitely, it was a time where racism was huge. It was huge. The segregation laws were just getting lifted, and it wasn't very common to trust someone who was a Black American to come up and tell you that he's going to take care of you, he's going to save you while all this chaos is going on. So I could see the confusion, especially when you're in Pittsburgh and all you have are these Pittsburgh rednecks running around that are gun happy and just taking out everybody. But does
The
anyone?
video?
Oh, the color.
Yeah, I can see the video.
It's the only one. It's the first one I saw. Just the color version. It's on YouTube. Sorry, so not to cut you off. I don't even know if the sound's going to come through, but here's Ben coming out of the basement. Just look
It's
at their faces
lagging.
before it happens. I'm sure it's like it's working for me.
Look at
So
that.
they've just
Zombie
shot a
thing.
zombie. So they've just shot one. So they're already keyed up. They're
They're
already
amped up, yeah.
Here comes Ben out of the basement. And
Blurry.
by the way, this colorized version is they kind of really blow it in the opening sequence of the film
Oh, really?
because it's colorized.
This guy looks like a jerk off to me. The bandolier.
Well, yeah, there's definitely an indifference, you know.
So yeah, I guess you can't really see Ben at all in there.
See, there's one. He says, "There's one. Get him right between the eyes."
Okay,
Bam.
so you know what? You can't in the colorized version. You can't see almost inside the room at all. You can only see like a silhouette, which is different. I've never seen the colored version of the Night of the Living Dead all the way through. So I guess I'm wrong totally because you can't see Ben at all.
No, that's the thing. It's just it wasn't so much racism. It was
Yeah,
It
no,
was-
not at all. I take it
it was
back.
it was just more
Confusion.
chaos. Yeah, it was just more chaos. So one of my favorite parts of Night of the Living Dead is the budget was very low. Almost everyone did work for free, and there's one scene in the movie where Ben is explaining his point of view of what happened, where a tanker crashed into a gas station and then blew up, and there was people like there were zombies hanging on the car, and they were trying to get in. The car was driving away, and he had it like the way he was describing it, the visualization of that scene. You didn't need a lot of money to make that scene, but just having the narrative explain it for you was very descriptive, and you could almost feel like you're there.
He said they were flying through the air like bugs as I plowed through them.
Yeah, and just that whole scene where he's just describing it, you just kind of feel like you're there. All right, so we covered Night of the Living Dead. So they of course they went through their whole bullshit where they originally called the movie Night of the Flesh Eaters, and it became Night of the Living Dead, and then copyright laws didn't really go in favor of John Russo and George A. Romero. So no one made any money, but that didn't stop George from making one of my favorite zombie movies of all time, Dawn of the Dead, which was released about 10 years later.
Yeah.
And that movie itself, I believe, is much more of a staple in the zombie genre than Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead was something that no one's seen before. Everyone knew about the zombies, like Haitian voodoo zombies, but no one ever really took in that there was flesh-eating zombies. They bit you, you reanimated, you came back. And it wasn't until Dawn of the Dead where the movie itself attacked consumerism, with the setting being in the mall, and what everyone's need for items was, for everyone's need for supplies was. And it was, just we can go into a whole topic about it, but I want to hear from you guys your thoughts of 1978's George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Anyone wants to take it, go ahead.
It's good.
I liked it.
It's a good date movie, really. If you want to impress a girl.
Dawn of the Dead was for a long time a movie that I would stay away from because I had an incident when I was a kid, seeing one scene where a man bit into a woman, and I stayed away from it for like 15 or 16 years. And looking, back to when I finally saw it again, I watched it, and first of all, I loved it, but everything looks so, not to show disrespect, but kind of cheesy.
Is that the scene where they raided the projects in the very beginning?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the dude
And he
with the
bites into her
grandfather.
shoulder.
And man, that part scarred me when I was a kid. I saw it in my head for years and years, and every time I'd see the case, the image of Dawn of the Dead, you know, that would pop up in my mind, you know, and it just that part it'll still stick with me. But and I think, you know, seeing it, like I said again later, many years later, I looked at it in a different way, and that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I don't know. I got to finally realize how great of a movie it is. The story for me is really just. I think Rayzilla said it was tight. It was very tight. It was very interesting to see what they did and where they went and how life went on during the zombie apocalypse while, you know, everything's falling apart around them. They're going to the mall and shopping and, you know, going to the bank and like the security cameras and showing the money and all that stuff. Like they were almost having fun while all this stuff was going down and while one of the guys was dying because he got bitten because they had that by the ass.
I saw it at a pretty young age myself, and it was one of the first horror movies that kind of made me contemplate what you would do if you were in that scenario. And obviously they took it to a whole nother level by going to the mall. But it was like, immediately you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need this and that, water, food. It's like one of the first movies that made me think, what would I do?
The best part was the cast of characters that were in it and how they were, like, the two guys on the SWAT team were able to, they all came up with a plan of how to block the exits and entrances, and they had a strategy, and, you know, it was, excuse me, everything about it. My favorite thing about the movie, though, just in general, is I think the story goes that Romero got to go visit, the malls were new at the time, and he got to go visit his friend owned the mall or something like that, and he kind of visualized a zombie movie in his head in the mall, and that's how it was born, right? Am I wrong on that? Fuck, that hurts.
I think it was the Monroeville Mall in PA.
Monroeville Mall, yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law went there a couple years ago. He got to go, they have a zombie walk there. My brother-in-law, he met Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead there. And got a signed picture that says choke on him. Look at the Day of the Dead. Yeah, Monroeville Mall. That's the name of that's the mall.
Yep.
And got a signed picture that says. Why do I hear myself?
Slight echo.
Sorry, I was. Looks like we're having some difficulty with someone's mic. That
it's probably mine.
No, it's you. It's not you. It's Rob Martinez says they can hear Jared. They can hear Ray. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
Are you muting yourself? Because the mute icon keeps popping up on your.
Yeah, I saw the mute icon.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. No, it keeps popping up because I keep blowing my nose and coughing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for being considerate.
But we don't need to hear it.
It also
showing. So I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that.
In any case, what up, Rob?
Can y'all hear me? Or is my mic still being weird?
You sound good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, if I can jump in.
Rob Martinez.
About doing it.
Okay, so it's me that we can't hear. That's cool.
Go for Rayzilla. I almost called you Razor.
Well, the first time I saw Dawn of the Dead was actually in the theater. It was the State Theater in Jersey City. Used to be one of my regular haunts. I can't count the films that I went to see at the State Theater in Jersey City. Also, there was a small theater on Bergen Line Avenue in West New York that I used to go to as well as a kid.
Is it still standing?
The State Theater, no, the State Theater is gone. It actually collapsed. They were doing some work on the buildings around it, and the State Theater itself actually collapsed during some demolition that was going on. But I saw it in the theater, and just like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, breaks cinematic taboos, and I think that that's part of the success to these films, is that they take what you understand about the genre, and they turn it on its head a little bit, and they break the rules just a little bit. Children are killed on camera. Zombie children.
Ken
The
Foray
amount
talks
of
about
gore.
how much trouble he didn't like that scene.
Yes, the amount of gore that's in the film was really excessive for the day. You really didn't have that kind of stuff going on, at least in the U.S.
In Night of the
playing
Living
in
Dead,
theaters.
you don't see anybody bite into another person, do you? In Night of the Living Dead?
No, I don't think it's that graphic. No, and also too, you have to remember that Dawn of the Dead was in color as well. So here we see it quite vividly, all done in color. But so again, for me, the experience, the breaking of the taboo, the breaking of the cinematic taboos, the intensity of it, the rawness of it. I think the second act goes on for a little too long. For my taste personally, when the bikers come into the mall in the third act, it really starts to kick it into gear, and the movie gets exciting again. I think Act 2 could have still used a little tightening.
I think the whole thing with Act 2 is Act 3 is very short. You know what I'm saying? Like when the bikers get to the mall and attack the mall and all that's going on, that's a short part of the movie. And I think that's why Act 2 drug on so long. I agree with you. There's
not much left of the film after that. But the script is very smart. The performances are quite good. It's a winner all the way around. It's highly recommended. If you haven't seen it, for shame.
Morgan, have you seen it?
Go sit in the corner, but otherwise, it's terrific. It's a terrific movie.
Yeah.
When I saw it, actually, my reaction coming out of the theater in Jersey City was that I really couldn't believe that they actually made films like this. Was my reaction coming out of the theater after I saw it. I just couldn't, up until that point, you really hadn't seen anything like that on the big screen.
That graphic and that violent.
You know what I find kind of weird is, Rayzilla, you don't have your Dawn of the Dead poster behind you, and we're talking about it.
Well, I know. We got more than one. I didn't want to. I swapped it out last week for Phantasm and the Thing because I didn't want to have too much. While Jared has his there, I could go get it if you want. Could go grab it and switch it out for you, but otherwise, I thought I would zig while Jared zig.
Well, before we go any further, I wanted to ask, has everyone seen the 3 released versions? The theatrical, of course, which is probably everybody has seen.
Yeah.
The European, and then the director's cut. Is it director's cut?
Extended.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can find them all on this, and there's a Blu-ray coming out, 4K version, in Italy, of course.
But they don't have region-free 4K players yet.
No. Well, it doesn't matter. You can get the Blu-rays, and the Blu-rays are region-free, I believe. Because they come in the set with the 4K.
Yeah.
They just need to release it in America. Morgan, I'd like to know what you thought of Dawn of the Dead.
Morgan?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
My laptop, it's like cutting in and out.
What do you think of Dawn of the Dead? Let's can you give me a little bit? No?
What did I think of Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead.
I really liked it. I could see how it is zombie stuff like Zombieland and The Walking Dead. Like while I was watching it, I could see like, and yeah, Steven. But then that ended very quickly, so I'm happy.
All right.
Well, before we go on, let me throw my 2 cents in on this movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, man. You know what? I kind of wanted to wait for last because I feel like you got some good things to say.
Well, first of all, it's been quite a few years since I've seen Dawn of the Dead. And that's because mainly due to the beginning of the film, when they're in the chopper and they're flying over Johnstown and other areas. How to put this? Shanksville was not too far from Johnstown. It's about, I don't know, 40 miles. Shanksville is when Flight 93 crashed. So for me, knowing that area really well, I got family out there and such, was very hard for me to go back and watch a film because every time you talk about Johnstown, you immediately made the connection to what's nearby. So it took me time to kind of go back and watch that movie. And now going back and watching it, which I just did this weekend, there's a lot of the film I do enjoy immensely. I find the one part of the gun shop in the mall to be quite nice. Miss that in malls. I'm a very strong supporter of Second Amendment rights, and I can understand why you take gun shops out of malls during, say, Christmas season when you get crowds. You might just want to go on a shooting spree. Because half the people walk around like zombies anyway. But no, I've enjoyed the movie, and I don't mean to segue into it, but Snyder's remake I thought was very good. I don't really like remakes, but Snyder actually makes a film that has a small problem in it early on. 3 days before Snyder makes the movie, Universal, I think it was, cut his budget in half because of Van Helsing bombing at the box office. So he had a scheduled budget, and then he had to rework his entire film with less than 3 days before commencing filming. So not too bad for what he did. I thought both films still to this day live up to their standards.
One of the things... sorry, Ryan. I was going to say, going into seeing Dawn of the Dead, the remake in 2004, I had come off seeing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which the original I hold, very dear to my heart, I guess. And so every time there's a remake, I'm interested to see what they do with it. That's the first thing. But I'm always very nervous and kind of like, what are they going to mess up? Dawn of the Dead, the remake, almost could be its own thing. It's just they slapped Dawn of the Dead on the title and put it in the mall. That's almost the... it's almost its own entity, not even a remake to me. It's very good. They changed the zombies where they're running, of course, rather than slow moving. And I think that added a little bit to the fear factor for me. And I thought it was a superb film. And one of my favorite things is I love openings of movies where they kick you right in your nuts immediately. Yeah. And they did, immediately. And then the best part, not the best part of the movie, but one of the best parts was when I saw it in the theater. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. All of a sudden, it starts playing when the man comes around. I'm like, holy fuck, this is the best thing ever. That was one of my favorite things of the whole movie was that popping up, and, in the beginning credits. I'm like, Jesus, this is great. And I was pumped, and I loved it. I saw it like 6 times in the theater.
Well, yeah, Snyder, now, he was one of the actual zombies that was storming I think it was the White House at the end of the opening credits.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I believe he was. And as for the end credits, I think it was, he came up with a really neat way of doing the credit with the blood, which is actual blood being sprayed out with a kind of like an air pressure onto it to spread out the blood and things. So it was a cheap way, but he basically was, as he said, out of money. At that point, and the end footage during the credits with that videotape and such, completely ad-lib, just something they came up with.
That was awesome.
There, because they just, once again, we're out of money. We don't know what to do for an ending.
Well, he runs a tight ship.
Oh. Yeah, tight ship with no cash at that moment. So,
yeah, I thought they utilized it very well, especially that first 15 minutes. Where it's just quiet before the storm, then it's organized chaos. That's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really well done.
But Zack Snyder took the original premise, not original premise, but like the original idea of Dawn of the Dead, and he turned it into 100% nightmare fuel. Like you thought, like Dawn of the Dead, like George Romero's was kind of cheesy, but it still had that fear. Where Zack Snyder's was, guess what? These zombies can run, and you will turn instantly.
Immediate sense of urgency.
Well, and Zack Snyder was at the theater for each person, punching him in the nuts every couple minutes. That's seriously, watching that movie was like a nut punch every few minutes. There was something, like there was there was some down moments, but unlike the original Dawn of the Dead, where the middle was down.
I love the zombie birth though. That was cool.
Yeah, see, that's another nut punch.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things I will say about Dawn of the Dead, don't watch it with the commentary. If you've watched it with the commentary, Zack Snyder, all he does is call everybody a rock star, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
George Romero made the original. He's a rock star. It's like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up, Zack Snyder. Come on, go make a good Superman movie.
but yeah,
Hey,
no,
Vivian.
I mean,
You know what? They can go backwards.
the Zack
Let me see.
Snyder,
Hey,
James
that's
Gunn, Dawn of the
amazing.
Dead was absolute nightmare fuel. It was probably one of the better remakes,
Hey.
going
Hey,
hand in
you.
hand with The Hills Have Eyes. But the original the new Dawn of the Dead has an extended cut, unrated director's cut, which is
That's what I've got here.
it's so much better than the theatrical. Even though the theatrical was scary, but the extended has those scenes that were taken out of the movie. I know, like there's an additional scene. There's actually additional first-person documentary of who was the guy that was across Andy. And it's all first-person shaky cam of like the day in the life of Andy, and that was like.
And when he ran out of ammunition finally.
The lost
Officials have declared a state of emergency. Everybody they kill gets up and kills.
Yeah, that's another thing. That relationship between
and stay there.
Ving Rhames' character and Andy.
I've
they,
just been
that was
informed
one of my
that we are
favorite
going
parts
off
of
the
entire
air
movie.
and switching to the emergency
Was he's like
broadcasting system.
doesn't know the guy, but he's like best friend and messes everything up. But
That was for me. That was the best element of the movie.
Look up the road, there's a
I'm
lot
not
more of
as
them.
enamored with it.
Why are they
as the
coming
rest
here?
of You guys
Maybe
are.
they're coming for us.
I'm really not a big fan of remakes. Very few remakes.
Sooner or later, they're going to get in here.
In my favor, and this is one of them. Really.
It's only a matter of
For
time.
me, it's a good zombie
They'll find
film,
a way
but
in.
it really didn't have the
Oh, God.
impact. I kind of felt, it was a good zombie film. But really take the genre in, a direction for me.
Well, it
It
relaunched
was
the zombie genre. If you ask me,
it was. I'm sorry.
it relaunched the zombie genre.
Dawn, yeah, I mean, it did good box office, and yeah, I'm sure there's some truth to it, but for me, it just felt that I want to know why no one in the mall decided to try to use the internet. That was a little annoying. I kept thinking, isn't there a computer shop somewhere in the mall? Can't you just hop online and?
Well, I thought all
What's
communications. I thought all communications were down. I didn't think there was anything left, just radio, and then they couldn't even use the phones. Or
Well, at the beginning, CJ and the other two guards could have probably tried to use the radio or something like that.
Yeah.
But they do mention
yeah.
once they're watching TV. at the beginning of the movie.
But the element that I
CJ is
found
less
refreshing, the element that I found refreshing was the way that they communicated with the fellow at the gun shop using the boards, using the signs, and this and that. That was certainly for me the most refreshing part of the entire thing. But really, for the most part, I'd seen the running zombies. What was it? 28 days. So I've seen the fast running zombie thing going on already, and
but they weren't zombies though. And 28 days later, they were still alive.
Yeah, infected, sick.
Yeah, but most people look at 28 Days Later and they put it with the zombie movies. I think
I know. I can't stand when people say it, because when I first watched 28 Days Later, I'm like, it's an okay zombie movie, and then I watched it again a little bit older, and when you put into the mindset that they aren't zombies, they're actually people that are still alive. They're just they're infected with rage. What the guy said at the beginning,
just
of the
like
movie.
me.
Yeah, Rage Eraser. And that's what I really liked about the first 28 Days Later. I know we're going off topic. 28 Weeks Later was okay because they wanted to make it more of a zombie movie, even though they weren't zombies. But 28 Days Later was just like, it was that fear of losing everyone that you know and everyone that you love, only to know that they're still alive, but they don't see you the way they see you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like the part about that movie that really got to me was when Cillian Murphy, whatever you want to fucking call him. Cillian Murphy. He
He's
goes
silly.
over to the fountain, and on the fountain, there's all these pictures of everyone
Oh,
that's
yeah.
missing, and you just see like everyone missing.
The
And then
beginning of that movie, after he wakes up, is so chilling when he's walking through the streets of London and there's nothing. But we'll talk about 28 Days Later some other time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We still got
I'm
my
still waiting
favorite
for
Romero.
28 weeks later.
No, 28 months.
Or months, that's it.
Yeah.
But our next topic that we have for you tonight, those who are watching, we covered Night of the Living Dead. We covered Dawn of the Dead. There's only one more in the original trilogy that we're going to cover, and I know that everyone here loves that movie. And here it is.
Ray's got his. Wait, I got mine.
Day of the Dead. Now, that's the yellow box Anchor Bay one, right? Is that correct? Or is that Synapse?
No, this is the Anchor Bay one here.
Yeah,
That's Anchor Bay?
I got that one too.
It fell. I also have the
Okay.
Scream Factory Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
Actually, the
Little-
Scream Factory Blu-ray, I got to tell you,
Book,
there's a terrific documentary on here. It's called World's End: The Legacy of Day of the Dead, and that's when Tom Savini calls it his masterpiece.
So, Day of the Dead, Tom Savini noted that in Dawn of the Dead, that he didn't necessarily like the way that his zombies came out. They came out blue. He was using a gray skin tone to kind of make them that, like, they lost all the blood, in their heads and their bodies, and they're just, they go for that stage of rigor mortis, and after it, and they're just, like, bruised. It came out blue. It looked very cheesy.
It did.
Where Day of the Dead, this is after everything. No, there's no more macho radio, TV, television host on the air talking about ways that they could save the humanity or what they could do. No, everyone is dead. There's no more life. Everyone is hiding. If the people who are alive are underground, and the zombies, they're now decayed. They're falling apart, and it shows. The very first 5 minutes of Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, there's a zombie that looks like a skeleton, and that's because, hey, these zombies are falling apart, and it's the sense of humanity is gone. They know it's gone. Everyone knows it's gone. And Captain Rhodes, who is in charge of the underground bunker, did we talk about him being in Dawn of the Dead already?
Joe Pilato or the actual character?
Joe Pilato. He was in Dawn of the Dead. He was one of the police officers. He was one of the police officers that in the very beginning of the movie, he's one of the police officers who's sealing boxes out of the warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
And they meet up with him and they go on a boat and they're looking for an island. I think that that's pretty cool. That may be Captain Rhodes. That's fan theory though. But Captain Rhodes is in charge of this underground bunker. It's his way or the highway. Meanwhile, Dr. Frankenstein is working on making the zombies more human, and then he has a specimen, Bubs, right? Is that his name, Bubs the zombie?
Just Bub.
Bub.
Just Bub.
And Bub is intelligent, and Dr. Frankenstein has found a way to make intelligent zombies. Now, that being said, let's talk about Day of the Dead. Who wants to go first?
I can, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Day of the Dead to me is, I think it's the best zombie movie ever made. Because it shows, first of all, when you're watching it, you get the idea that these could be the last humans on Earth. Okay, and this is how they're reacting to their situation. You got the scientists, and then you got the military. Who knows if they're actually military? Because they all look like a bunch of scumbags. So, especially Rhodes. But I like that they're in a situation where they could be the last humans. Rather than working together, they're at each other's throats constantly. They can't work together. It's probably mostly because the military are a bunch of dicks in the movie, right? But I don't know. The effects in this movie are top notch. I really do like the story. I like the character, not chemistry, but I like the characters, all the interactions between Rhodes and Dr. Frankenstein, because Rhodes loses his shit every time he's talking to him. Dr. Frankenstein kind of stays calm, and it feels like he's just almost trying to push at Rhodes a little bit, and I love it so much. And then, of course, I love that Rhodes gets what he deserves at the end. But he's like my favorite character in the whole series. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead, is definitely my favorite zombie movie. I think it's I take it back. I think it's the best zombie movie. And Dawn of the Dead is my favorite. Does that make sense? I will say no more.
Sure.
I can understand what you're saying there, because you got to
Felt
face.
like I was rambling.
No. Listen, that film is basically what. Let's face it. We got a lot of people out there, and I know a few of them, who are preppers. You know, they prep for all kinds of things. Okay, they really do, and they're really good at it. Some of them are a little out there, and I know them all. Anyway, these people are underground, and the military, like you're saying, is like scumbags. I also look at it upon, they've probably seen their buddies, their comrades, their pals killed, eaten, just mutilated, turned into zombies, and there's nothing left for them. They're really running on the ragged edge, and they're just playing out this dead hand, so to speak. There's no winning move. They know that. They're at a bunker, a silo, something, and they're left with the final mission of, you got to preserve human life, work with the doctors, help them find the cure or something, and yet you're running on this mission that there is no mission. There is no end game, so to speak. You got the dead surrounding you outside. There's a chopper that only has enough seats in there and can only take so much weight. So you are literally at a breaking point. So when the guys start kind of breaking down and losing it, like there's that one guy who's really on the ragged edge, they've seen it. They're shell shocked, if you would, PTSD. You know, they're just they can't take any more. So the film uses a lot of psychological impact that way, and is explaining post-traumatic syndrome of soldiers, if you would. They're done. They can't take any more, and the Frankenstein lab is really cool. I mean, let's face it. How many times do you actually get to see a body roll over and find its guts plopping out on the ground? Plop, 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 plop. It's beautiful. So,
Yeah. The special effects in that movie are phenomenal.
One other thing. The intelligent Bob, zombie. I think that kind of alludes to George later on with Land of the Dead, where the zombie started getting a little bit more thinking, if you would, into them.
Oh,
so
for
it's
sure.
almost like he went back and borrowed from that for that film.
Well, I think it's just the evolution of the zombie. You know, Night of the Living Dead is the beginning. You know, and I think they get smarter as the movies progress. You know, they may have been a little bit smarter in Dawn of the Dead, and they were definitely not just even Bub. You know, Bub was being taught, where the other zombies, you know, could have had a chance. You know, but they could have been getting smarter, and the longer they're, you know, zombies, maybe the more advanced they become, because Big Daddy from Land of the Dead was able to lead like an army of zombies into Fiddler's Green.
You know, actually, think about that. That's actually a good point, because in Dawn of the Dead, one of the zombies does kind of stand there as a mannequin.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Coming around, he then lunges. So that's a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you could talk about all the zombies, the zombie evolution from Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. Where Night of the Living Dead, your very first zombie picks up a brick and smashes it through a window. You might take that as like a throwaway. And same thing with the daughter at the end of Night of the Living Dead, who picks up the dirt, and kills her mother with it. And in Dawn of the Dead, you have Steven Flyboy. When he dies, he goes to the wall that they built and
immediately knows to try to tear it down.
Well, that's the thing. I had a theory on that. The guy at the beginning with the brick of the first movie, Night of the Living Dead. Well, how fresh of a zombie can you be to where you still have your memories? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he was. I don't know if he was a corpse yet. Maybe he had just died, and when he came back, he still had, you know, could still think, and definitely rigor mortis didn't set in because he could move a little bit better than some of the other ones. Also, they didn't know what they were doing exactly in the first movie. But yeah, I agree with Flyboy. When he's the freshest zombie, I think we find, other than what's his name, David Emge's character.
Oh yeah, the short guy.
Yeah, I can't think of his.
Oh, what, Roger?
Oh no, Scott Reiniger. Yeah, Roger. They as soon as he turns into the zombie, he gets shot in the head. So we don't know how he was going to react. But Flyboy almost kind of, still knew what was going on. So I wonder, if there's when you turn into a zombie, you're here, you still have some memories and still have a little bit of humanity left, but it tapers off and then comes back around. After being the zombie for so long, after you completely die and decay, and then everything regrows. Maybe, I don't know. Thinking too much about it.
You had the zombies in the mall. There's the one scene where the lead female. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with names right now. She shuts the store door on the one zombie, and the zombie just kind of plops down and sits and looks at her like he's like. He's sad and he's just watching her. And then you had the other zombies who are like walking around. And what about the one zombie who was very funny because he grabs a hold of Peter's machine gun and he's holding it up to his face the entire movie, and he's obsessed. And then at the very end, when Ken Foree is up on the helicopter roof, he has the rifle, and the zombie grabs the rifle, looks at the machine gun, throws the machine gun, and it keeps the rifle. These zombies have some memory, and they mention this a few times, where the zombies will always have a part of their the humanity that they left behind. But even though it's not 100%, it's not 100 proof. But Bub was the first zombie where Dr. Frankenstein went in and trained him to use his mind to going back, because Bob never eats anyone in the movie. He shoots Captain Rhodes. He doesn't go after him like the rest of them and eats them.
Dr. Frankenstein was also feeding him.
He was feeding him entrails and stuff, but he wasn't feeding on his own.
Yeah, but Bub's desire wasn't to eat Captain Rhodes. He could have joined the rest of them when Captain Rhodes screamed choke on it. But Bub said, "I'm going to use this firearm," to himself. He didn't say it out loud, obviously, but he shot Captain Rhodes. And instead of joining with the rest of the zombies eating them, he salutes Captain Rhodes as he's getting destroyed by the infected.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he's being a smartass. Maybe Bub's a smartass.
Our first smartass zombie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see how that goes hand in hand with Land of the Dead, and then they get more into it with Survival of the Dead, which is just
also Tom Savini's character shows up in Land of the Dead. He survived the attack on them all as a zombie. Blades, yeah. Anybody hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
It's funny because Land of the Dead actually more closely resembles Romero's intent for Day of the Dead. In the earliest drafts, when he was writing the script and the film was in development, he envisioned a zombie army. And as he was developing the story, and he was working with, I believe it was Richard Rubenstein, who co-produced the movie with him. I think it was a Laurel production at the time. Mm-hmm. They were still cranking out content. It proved to be too expensive.
Budget
and
strain.
so Romero was left to make the film smaller and smaller and smaller, and his zombie army got whittled down to one character. Yeah. So Land of the Dead really probably more closely had Romero had the funding. Day of the Dead probably would more closely resemble Land of the Dead.
The interesting thing about that, in that documentary, I mentioned the World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead. Romero said he signed a deal with whoever made this movie to make a bunch of movies, and they wanted a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, like immediately, but he didn't want to do it. He made Night Riders, whatever the hell, Night something or others.
Night Riders.
Was it Night Riders?
Yes, Night Riders, yeah.
Strange movie. But anyway, he made that instead of making Day of the Dead. I believe he said that if he would have made Day of the Dead immediately after, he would have been able to make the movie he wanted to. But because he waited so long, and the zombie genre kind of fell by the wayside, even though Return of the Living Dead came out earlier that year, which also is probably why Day of the Dead didn't have as much success. But he said that he thinks that if he would have made it back in 80 or 81 or whenever that other movie came out, he probably would have been able to make the movie he wanted to.
Well, of the three films, this one for me is my least favorite, Day of the Dead. From a production standpoint, it's the best looking of the three. It's head and shoulders above Dawn of the Dead in production value. As far as Savini's work, it's his masterpiece, and the movie should be viewed specifically for Savini's work. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, the star of the film is Savini's work. It is as realistic as anything you're likely to see. I think that his years in makeup and in camera illusion and forced perspective all culminates in Day of the Dead. And it's truly his finest work, and the movie should be watched and loved for that alone. For me personally, I don't care for the script very much. I like the concept, but I struggled a little bit with the dialogue, and I struggled quite a bit with some of the performances. I think that the performances are a little over the top. You know, well, Rhodes and some of the secondary characters. So, you know, I have a lot of mixed emotions about it. It's definitely my least favorite of the three, where you have the cinematic taboos and the impact and crossing the line with the two previous films. Day of the Dead really doesn't really break any rules for me, perhaps with the exception of Bub. But really, I had a hard time liking these characters. My perspective on it is that this is who's left during the zombie apocalypse, and the people that are left may not necessarily be the best people in the world, and maybe that's why they survived, is because that they're lowlifes and douchebags and scumbags, and this is why their moral compass is pointed in the wrong direction. So I get that part of it. I get why these are the people who are left. I had a difficult time wrapping my head around liking these characters. Everyone is, even the portrayal of Dr. Frankenstein is just a slightly over the top for me. So really the script and the performances kind of knocked this one down a few notches for me. But from a production standpoint and from Savini's work alone, again, the star of the movie for me is Tom Savini's masterpiece, without question.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, it was a very dialogue-driven movie. But when you have dialogue-driven movies like that, you need someone who can act natural. You need that naturalism from the actors. You need that method acting. You can't just have people screaming at each other the entire time. If you're at a certain pitch of tone, you're losing the audience. Now, with that being said, my favorite monologue in that entire movie is the one from the Jamaican guy. I don't remember his name, but he goes into that long monologue about just being alive, and that was probably the best dialogue of the movie, considering that it was a very dialogue-driven movie. It didn't have the action that Dawn of the Dead had. It didn't have the, oh my God, we're trapped in a house and everyone around us is coming to get us. It didn't have that fear of Night of the Living Dead. But you're right. It did have the Tom Savini's makeup. It did have Greg Nicotero, who was also heavily involved in the movie. He was also actually a soldier in that movie. And we'll get to Greg Nicotero in a little bit with George Romero and The Walking Dead. But the movie was very dialogue driven, and you need actors who can translate that dialogue, not just scream it at each other. You know what I mean?
And if I can make one final point, of the three films, I feel that Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead held a mirror to society.
George
They
Romero's
were
always
very,
conscious of
they were very, very, very much in tune with the social consciousness of the time that they were released. Day of the Dead, I couldn't relate to the character. The mall scenario I can relate to. The farmhouse being, locked up in a home, that kind of surrounding I could relate to. But for me as a viewer, I had a difficult time relating to the characters and really relating to the setting. So for me, it's my least favorite of the three.
That's understandable. Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean, like, it didn't have it had mixed reviews. Day of the Dead. There's people who say it's the greatest zombie movie ever made, and then you have the people saying what? I mean, like, and then you have like people in the middle. But the people who think it's the greatest zombie movie ever made, they have their points. The people who thought it was mediocre have their valid points, and these are all good points. But the movies that followed after Night, Dawn, and Day will never live up to the expectations that those movies left us. Land of the Dead tried. I liked Land of the Dead. I wanted to love it. It came out the same day as Batman. What's the name of that movie? Batman Begins. Yeah, came out the same weekend, and Batman Begins, of course, was the better movie. But Land of the Dead was fine. My biggest concern with the movie was that it seemed like it didn't have my attention. I wanted it to have my attention.
I understand that completely.
It just
a little boring.
Yeah. And I get it, but Dennis Hopper is always an amazing actor. I love John Leguizamo. But that movie just didn't do it for me. But it wasn't as bad as Survival of the Dead. I'll even go as far as saying Diary of the Dead was enjoyable. But Survival of the Dead, I don't know what Romero was doing. I think he was basing it on like an old Welsh fairy tale or some bullshit. But that movie was awful.
It had a Hatfield McCoy's type of element to it, where two wealthy landowners hated each other, and it was boring. That was the most boring movie I think I've ever seen.
It was beyond terrible. It was beyond Thunderdome of being terrible.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it solely based on what I've heard about it. I've heard it's pretty. The last one I watched, I have here. Diary of the Dead.
Survival of the Dead makes Diary of the Dead look like Dawn of the Dead.
Well, Diary of the Dead was kind of a Blair Witch, the Living Dead kind of thing, wasn't it? If my memory.
Yeah, it was a found footage.
I think I watched it once, and that was it.
It was a modern first-person view of Night of the Living Dead.
Gotcha.
Well, the events of Night of the Living Dead, it happened at the same time. It didn't take place in the house or anything like that.
Yeah.
Same time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The outbreak.
But as we wrap up Night, Dawn, and Day, before we go into our next segment, does anyone have any final closing statements on any of the movies?
I do want to say one thing. I actually ask, which movie out of the three main ones, is your favorite? Mine obviously is Dawn of the Dead is my favorite. I think Day is the best, but which one is your favorite?
My favorite out of all of them, it's a close one between Night and Dawn.
Beetlejuice?
From a movie maker's point of view, Night of the Living Dead. I love Dawn of the Dead. I thought Dawn of the Dead was one of the best zombie movies out there. But from a filmmaker's point of view, Night of the Living Dead and the controversy it went through, and everybody. Dawn of the Dead's the most fun, but Night of the Living Dead was like the most controversial to me, and that's what I loved about it.
Dawn of the Dead was my favorite, absolutely. The fact that it was in color, For the time, you have to remember I saw it when it came out in the theater, so it was quite shocking for the time. And as I walked out of the State Theater in Jersey City, I just couldn't believe that people made films like this. It had a profound effect on me, Dawn of the Dead. So that one's definitely my favorite.
As for me, Dawn of the Dead also is my favorite out of them all. It has the most social connections to the film itself, especially if you think about today's world and how the police are, and the police storming the projects, trying to take a kind of a new authority position into them. The film just has a lot of things that still can work today in society, so it hasn't, as I say, aged itself too far.
A lasting social commentary.
That's a really great point, Baron. Absolutely. I think that the movie and its theme holds up quite well today.
I think Romero was always going for that, though, too.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. He did that with the Crazies, too.
I don't know what he was going for with Monkey Shines, but it scared the 4-year-old out of me.
That's what he was trying to do. Right.
It was like George Romero directed a movie for Lifetime Television, and that was called Monkey Shines. And it was
Monkey
great.
Grunt.
It was no Shockma, but it was fun. Morgan, we didn't get to you. What was your favorite out of the trilogy?
Well, I was very busy this weekend, and I didn't get to. I watched the Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead right before we didn't finish it. I don't even think I got halfway, maybe halfway.
Of Day of the Dead?
Probably Dawn of the Dead.
Okay, so Dawn of the Dead for the win. And there we go. Dawn of the Dead is the zombie movie, the ultimate zombie movie.
Yeah, I think if you ask any horror fan, they'll say Dawn of the Dead is their favorite of the three.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, Dawn of the Dead came out in 1978. The Walking Dead came out in 2010. So we're going to get into that now. George Romero just announced. Was it through Twitter or was it through?
I think it was just an interview with somebody.
It was an interview, and he said that The Walking Dead, and was it also World War Z that he blamed for not helping him financially?
He threw Brad Pitt under the bus.
Why not? That movie is garbage.
I don't understand, but okay. But I get it because it was like, it's a zombie movie and it was like, it's based off of his idea. But
World War Z also cost almost like $400 million to film. And his problem is that he can't get funded to make another movie. He wanted to make another movie, but he can't get funded. And he's pointing out things like The Walking Dead ruined, his chances and the budget on. I don't think he's talking about, except for he did mention the same thing I mentioned when I first saw the trailer for World War Z, is the zombies are like fucking ants, making anthills, and it was ridiculous. And but he's talking about the damn budgets.
I think George's problem was Survival of the Dead. I don't think anyone wants to fund his movie after Survival of the Dead or Diary of the Dead. He hasn't
made a good movie since Land of the Dead.
Yeah, and you have this classic filmmaker, this controversial filmmaker whose movie Night of the Living Dead is in like Ebert's like top 100 films to like study, and he comes out with Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead. Land of the Dead is what it is, but I wouldn't want to give George Romero money to make a movie after watching Survival of the Dead. The 70s and 80s was a different time. It was a different time to make a movie such as Dawn of the Dead. It was a different time to make movies such as Day of the Dead. You had practical effects. Now you have a different type of layout for them now when you're watching a reality show or not reality show, TV show. The Walking Dead takes elements from modern day television, and that.
Oh, and this The Walking Dead's garbage. I'm here to tell you right now.
I think I gotta give it to Greg Nicotero.
Don't be like that.
I love The Walking Dead. I didn't love season 4 through 6. 7 is starting to pick back up. My favorite season was season 2. That was the season that Frank Darabont got kicked out. But it was the season that made you feel for the characters. And every other season after that, it's like, oh, let's get out of the prison. Let's go back to the prison. Let's get out of the prison. Oh, Beth dies. Let's go back to the prison. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Did anybody read the comics other than, I think, Jared, you said you've read them before.
Yes. I read
My mom read like some of them.
The Walking Dead is not rewatchable because AMC, the way they make the movie or show, is they drag everything out for suspense. And you try rewatching that episode with the governor and Rick sitting at a table, that shit is rough. The first time it's very tense, and that's good, but it's not rewatchable. And you know what? The way that they make it is they could probably wrap up a whole season in 4 or 5 episodes, but they drag everything out and they make you wait so long. And the first episode of this past season, that's the season they're on now. Like, I'm so surprised they got to where they had to go faster than normal. They usually take forever. It's like
they could have drew that whole first episode out and did nothing.
Yeah,
that's how they do it in fucking Walking Dead. I get so excited about it, and then it lets me down.
It's also a matter of economics. To Brian's point, if you're a financier and you want to invest in a filmmaker and you want to make a movie, you look at the track record of the individual who's coming to you and asking you for money, and you see that his last 3 or 4 films did not perform well financially. Well, you're going to have reservations about being a financier for this particular individual. It all boils down to money, folks. And again, to Brian's point, he makes a great point. The world has changed. Filmmaking has changed. Distribution has been turned on its head when it comes to the film industry. Viewer habits, as far as television, have changed drastically. Walking Dead, to blame Walking Dead, I'm not quite sure that that's fair. I think that what they do on Walking Dead, a lot of what they do on Walking Dead wouldn't earn an R rating in the theater. Cable is not beholden to any FCC. There's no FCC. There's no MPAA. Cable is self-policed. They create the little ratings, the little thing that you see in the corner, TVMA, with language and violence and such. As a matter of fact, I'm very good friends with people at AMC who do that very work, who attach the ratings to the episodes, and they screen the episodes prior to air. And they give notes. If you've noticed over the years, the blood on Walking Dead has gotten darker and darker. It started off being very red, and they darkened it over the years to a more blackish color because of viewer complaints and excessive blood and things like that. But as long as it gets good ratings, it's always going to push the envelope. The moment that it starts getting lousy ratings is when people will complain about the violence. And the network will react as such.
Eye-popping.
That's
what it is. It's eye-popping.
Yes.
Walking Dead is eye-popping.
Yeah.
Now, what I really loved about this season, going into it, we've had a few seasons where it was very repetitive. Their missions were repetitive. The stories get repetitive. We were killing characters for no reason. Like the death scenes were whatever. And then we bring this character, Negan, who everyone who has read the comic knows that he is the worst bad guy that they've encountered. He goes for your family. He's a very emotionally driven enemy who will not only hurt what you own, but destroy what you love and make you watch as he's destroying. or make you do it. And he knows how to get under your skin. And he also takes 50% of what you have. And here they bring in Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who perfectly plays this role.
He's a great actor.
He's a great actor, but I don't think he's right for the Negan role.
He is perfect for this role.
I was disappointed in the casting.
Just his like his comedic timing, his dark sense of humor, and just his evil, the evil that he portrays, and he kills off two main characters. The one was, joined us later on, but we killed Glenn. Glenn was in the second episode. He came in as on the radio in the first episode at the end of it, but he
Abraham
was
on
there
borrowed time, just so you know.
Yeah, Abraham was on borrowed time, and you have the comic book who still has characters that are still alive. Like I think Andrea's still alive. Sophia is still alive. And
Carol dies in the prison.
Carol dies way back when, yeah.
She offers herself up to a zombie, which is awesome.
And now Carol's she's got
Andrea.
the same heroism as Ellen Ripley from Alien and Aliens. She is the female heroine that gives the female audiences someone to root for. This is someone who has been brought down, who watched everything that she loved get taken from her, and she's just, she comes back and she's just this woman, this fierce woman that you don't fuck with, and she's very good at manipulating too. And
I think she also knows that the world is so messed up that she has to be that way. She lost her daughter and her husband who beat her, but
yeah.
She was a much weaker character in the comic book.
She was, and she also, I think she had an affair with Andrea or something in prison or something like that. I know she was sleeping with someone. I think it was Michonne. I wasn't sure, but they kept all that stuff out, and it is what it is. But going back to George Romero blaming the Walking Dead for not getting his funding. That also could mean that maybe he's trying to get a hold of Greg Nicotero, who is the front runner of the show, and Greg's just like, I'm not funding your movie, or maybe something happened between them. But to blame World War Z on the reasons why you're not getting funding for a movie. The World War Z wasn't that great. The fact that they're making a second World War Z is because they had enough money from the first one to think that it's okay to make a sequel to it. It's going to be just
Are they really making a sequel to it?
Yeah. They are. Look at Resident Evil. The Resident Evil movies are terrible, but there's a reason why they keep making them, and that's because
they make money.
they make a lot of money because they have that name, Resident Evil.
The first one was good. They kind of started tapering it off. I thought the first one was good at least.
First one was awful. And what every comic book fan is going through with the Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad, I went through that bullshit when Resident Evil came out. I was a huge fan of the video games. I was a huge fan of the books.
Me too.
George Romero was tied to directing the movie, and they canned it because they said that I believe it was, no one wants to see a horror movie about puzzles. So let's bring in Paul W.S. Anderson and his wife Mia Jovovich, and let's go with their idea and make a fucking action movie out of a survival horror series. And it sucks. And it sucked when I was 13. It sucked when I was 13 and I saw it in the theaters because it had nothing to do with the game, except they brought, and then later on they started bringing the characters from the video game into the series. But it sucks. The series sucks. The first movie sucks. I hope they all burn in hell. And I'm glad that this is the last Resident Evil movie so we can get a fucking reboot in this bitch.
You really shouldn't, Brian, you really shouldn't sugarcoat it at all, Brian. Just come right out and say what you're feeling.
About the movie.
Exactly.
Deeper into this.
All this repressed, anger
Anxiety
really needs to come out in some way.
Well, look at the people bitching about Suicide Squad and Batman versus Superman. Like, oh, that wasn't in the comics. I enjoyed it. I thought they were cool. But that's the same. People enjoyed Resident Evil, the first movie, and the diehard fans were like, "What is this shit?" And yeah. So back to World War Z. They're gonna make another one, and George Romero shouldn't blame it.
The only argument that could possibly be made is that audiences are scratching that itch when it comes to the zombies genre. That's about the only argument that I can make that could be made, is that Walking Dead is kind of scratching that itch for horror fans, and so why should we invest in a film that may or may not turn out to be profitable? So I mean, that's about the only argument that I could really come up with. Personally, I think Romero is superb when he's adapting other people's material. Some of my favorite films are the ones where he was adapting screenplays or by King and such. I think he should move on to something else.
Oh, what, like Monkey Shines 2?
Enough.
No.
Okay, so
Lord, please kill these monkeys. I mean, the sad state of affairs is this, guys. The #1 movie for Halloween weekend was Medea's Halloween. Was the #1 movie at the box office. If that's any indication of where the horror genre is heading theatrically, I know horror had a better summer than it did fall. Horror films did quite well over the summer.
Yeah, there's actually some not bad movies out this year for horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone tries to hit that home run in October. They tried to get that horror movie out there, that horror theatrical release, and Tyler Perry took it this time.
Well, look at horror in the theaters. You said we know we had all the horror movies that came out in this summer were huge. Halloween is the one time a year where everyone and their mother celebrates by getting scary or dressing up or doing this, doing that. And Medea coming out, that wasn't a horror audience. That was your broad audience of everyone in the country. That that's why that was so successful, because you have your average moviegoer and the rest of the public, whether it's everyone has a weekend off or stuff like that. So that's why they did so well.
Do you want to see the future fans of horror? Look at my screen now.
There you go.
This guy right here, he hung tough this October and watch. What'd you watch, buddy? Go and tell him. Evil Dead 2. A couple of Friday the 13th, Halloween 1 and 2. Shaun of the Dead he loved.
Shaun of the Dead. That's a good zombie movie.
He's got a bright future with all these movies behind us. We need to wrap this up because I got to put these kiddos to bed.
Okay.
And that's Razor. If you want to contact the Department of Child Services.
Yeah. This is the guys. Just so you know, this is Renzor. My son Reynolds, he goes by Renzor. So anyway, I got my other one crawling on me. They're ready to go to bed. So,
all right. So anyone have any final conclusions?
Yeah, put them to bed while you still have custody. So.
Okay, two things right off the bat. So let's get them done real quick here. #1, just to let people know, there's only been about 538 zombie films, totaling up to about 2011. So, we're getting pretty high up there in how many zombie movies there actually are. And #2, to a programming note to everyone out there, if you have a channel called El Rey, on November 4th, Friday at 4 p.m., if you have DirecTV, that'll be in the East Coast, 341. There's a movie called Mosquito that's going to be on.
Hey, I did not know that.
Yes, that's what I wanted to make the announcement for.
You said El Rey, right? So what we're going to do?
Rodriguez.
What we're going to do is we're going to show Mosquito live on the Horror Syndicate while it's live on El Rey, so everyone can watch this masterpiece. How's that sound, Ray? You like that?
Well, I hope that they show the print that is the Mosquito print, that it says Mosquito, because the one that's released on DVD, the opening sequence is different, and it's called Mosquito Man. So I hope that they show. There's an opening sequence in the DVD version that typical European sensibility, very disconnected from the plot, really disconnected from the rest of the story, and it was something that one of the producers insisted be in the film. And we, being at the network, we didn't like the way the film opened, and we had to cut it out for that cut for that version of the print. But what date was that again?
November 4th at 4 p.m.
November 4th at 4 p.m. on El Rey. That's funny.
Friday. It's Friday.
It's Friday. Yep. I just had to throw that out.
Enjoy, fellas.
I had to throw that out there because for about 2 weeks in advance, I get films figured out on DirecTV and the horror and start program the DVR to record stuff for me. And I saw that, I was like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's his phone." So I've
awesome.
been keeping that little.
That was one of the few films that I got a screen credit for.
Yes, I know.
It's the only movie I got a screen credit for. The majority of the movies that I did for Sci-Fi, I'm thanked later, special thank you in the credits at the end. But I was not. I was forbidden. I was told, work as hard as you want, but you're not going to get credit for anything. So, so that's one of the few that actually has my name on it.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw that out to everybody so they can, if you have
that's cool.
you got the access to it. So.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for another amazing episode. This is only episode 3. I feel like we're getting really comfortable with this, and running's a lot smoother than the first episode, especially that first episode on Blog Talk Radio, which we are no longer doing. But I had a blast. If you want to know more about us, please like the Horror Syndicate. You can go on the horrorsyndicate.com. Check out our website. On Twitter, we are at Horror Syndicate. At Instagram, we are at Horror Syndicate as well. You can follow me at facebook.com/Brian Enright or Twitter at The Horror Jew. Baron, where can we find you at?
On Twitter, it's going to be Baron_Craze. On Facebook, it's Baron Craze. And, of course, on Friday nights at 6:30, it is the Baron's Crypt, a 2-hour show discussing horror films by the horror historian myself.
Awesome. Jared, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Jared Laterno. Don't ask me how to spell it. Or zombie_survivor on Twitter.
Awesome.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Morgan, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Morgan_Jewel_S_.
Yay!
Underscore.
I think our new Twitter name should just be _.
Oh, man. Ray Zilla, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Facebook at Ray Canella, and you can follow me on Twitter at RayZillaNJ. And go Cubs. They're winning.
Yuck.
All right, last but not least, Razor. Where can we find you at?
Rage of Razor on Facebook. That is the Facebook page where I'm starting a new writing project. Just want to throw that out there for comics. And then at Razor_33 on Twitter. Don't bother looking me up on Facebook because I don't like people.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and everyone watching. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great night, and you can watch the full edited episode on YouTube every Friday night at midnight. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good one, everyone.
Good night.
Nighty night.